Hey friends, what's up? It's been quite a while actually since I've put a video. I was up in Nashville about a month ago and I posted some videos that got a ton of views. Went to a Tom Bukovac and Guthrie Trap and some other folks show up there and posted a few videos that were pretty interesting. Picked up a few new subscribers, but this is kind of a fun video. This is something I've been working on for a long time and I'll get kind of some of the details on it, but I've got two pedal boards here that I'm working on, and this is a Pivotal pedal board. So very similar to like the Schmidt Array, which I started looking at, and they're just really hard to find. I was like, man, I'll just buy a used one because they're so expensive, and that was impossible to find. And I just really couldn't bring myself to spend like $1,000 on the actual like base of the pedal board. So I ended up with this Pivotal. It wasn't exactly cheap, and I thought that this would be made out of metal and stuff, or some kind of a really light aluminum or something, but it's just wood, which is fine. I think that probably helps with the weight a little bit. And of course it's one of those that has the rise here. And of course I'll get into all the details here in a second, but it's got the little panels on the side. I'm using it for a DI on one side, and then they've got their little junction box here on the other side. And so anyway, the kind of goal, the goal design for this particular pedal board was to get like a 3-in-1 scenario, basically, right? So I can use the same wireless and some of the same pedals to run an acoustic rig, and then another set of pedals, primarily the dirt pedals down here, to be able to go into my trusty little Chris Stapleton Princeton amp. I also have a 2-rock that I kind of go back and forth with, a little Studio Pro 35. So that was really the goal. This little board over here is just kind of a dedicated acoustic with just some extra pedals and things that I had. This is one of those, it's a Joyo. It's one of those lithium ion powered, you can recharge it. I need to test to see how long this thing will last with all the pedals on, but it does just take the standard, like the little, just a 9-volt power supply to recharge this thing. So you can take that, obviously all the pedals and everything will work while it's plugged in and charging. But pretty simple rig here, just a wireless, the Cali 76, which in my opinion is the best pedal compressor that you can get for sure. And then a little dirt here. This is a little Fender overdrive pedal, the Halo, the Sakili pedal from Andy Timmons, super cool delay. And then a reverb and a delay built in, a little ditto looper, and then the tried and true LR Baggs Acoustic DI. So that's just kind of like a dedicated acoustic rig. If I'm just doing a little acoustic gig with my wife and I, that's what I'm gonna probably grab and pull out. But if I'm doing a full band gig, I wanted a rig that I could come out over here on this side and go into my amp, and then in the same rig wanted to be able to come over here and go into my DI. And so that's a Rupert Neve DI, the RN DI there. And basically what controls that, and again, I'll go through all the signal flow and just kind of some of the design elements and stuff here, but basically the control there is that. So if I have it over on this side, the output is coming over here to the amplifier, and if I switch it over here, then the output is effectively going over to the DI. So what are the components here, and why did I pick this board? So maybe at the end I'll do it, because you have to unplug this here. But all of this, very similar to a Schmidt Array board. This will lift up. You can see from the back there's a little flange that comes out here, and I can actually like pick this up and bring it over, and then this part right here sits closer to here. And then I've got you can buy this, it's like a gig bag that comes with it. It does have a top. The Pivotal they sell a top for it, but it was expensive, and I was just like, you know, if I was traveling or touring or gigging a lot and it was going to be in the back of a trailer or something, I probably would get that. One of the things I thought was really an oversight on this bag is there's no pockets at all on this thing. And so it'd be nice to be able to have a pocket in here where you could throw a couple cables, something like that. But overall, pretty happy with the board. I did think when I bought the thing that this little junction box was included with it for the price, but it wasn't, so I had to come back and buy it. I probably wouldn't buy this one again. I actually have a Friedman buffer bay that I should have thought about that. I probably would have put that there. But anyway, this is an extra, and basically it gives you the ability to, you know, to run different inputs and outputs. If you have a volume pedal over here, these are TRS, and so you can run a volume pedal into here and then run, you know, some other kind of control pedal or something like that, and then wire it so that when you're hooking up all your rig, all you got to do is just plug into these 1/4 inches out on side of here. They make a whole bunch of different scenarios, like you can custom order if you want an XLR, you can custom order little panels that you can put here too for whatever your needs are. But anyway, just kind of the way this thing goes signal flow wise, and I'll talk a little bit about this thing here too, because this is kind of a pretty important part of the rig here. But in terms of like the signal flow, another cool thing here too with these power supplies that I'll talk about here in a second, that was a game changer in terms of just the overall quality of the sound coming out. Like this thing is whisper quiet. This board with all this stuff, with my single coil guitars and my humbucker guitars, when I'm just standing here with this wireless on, it is whisper quiet, which is awesome, because that was part of the reason that I went through this whole process, was that my other board, it was just kind of piecemealed together. By the way, this is not the final cabling. I'm just going to leave it like this for a while and gig on it, just to make sure that these are the pedals that I want to put in, and this is the order of everything and just all that stuff. And then after that, I've got, by the way, I can't recognize these guys enough. These are cables and ends from Evidence Audio. And this guy makes incredible stuff. Super cool guy too. UPS, US, the Postal Service actually lost one of I bought the first one of those that I bought, and they lost it. And I just emailed him and said, hey man, you have any tracking or whatever? He's like, nah, and he just sent me another one. Super cool dude. So just kind of how the signal flow goes and works. Obviously I'm using the Shure. This is the GLDX16. It's the newer one. This is the older one over here. This one has the older, it's got the, you know, micro USB charger, the older, it's got the replaceable battery and stuff on. This thing works great. A little bit different of an antenna. This is also only 2.4 gigahertz band, whereas the new one is a 5 gigahertz and 2.4 gigahertz. I tried for grins to see if I could link, whatever they call that, this thing to the Shure, the new one, and it wouldn't work. So you have to buy another one of these. This is the new one, so you can see the antenna is a little bit different. It uses USB-C, thankfully. Otherwise, it's pretty close. Thing has been charging all night, and it still shows like it's charging red, but when I just turned it on, it showed full battery over here, so that's kind of weird. Anyway, back up here, signal obviously comes into the Shure wireless. This is a buffered output. So if you just were to take a short cable, Pete Thorne actually, if you want to look it up on YouTube, Pete Thorne actually does a really good video and shows the sound comparisons. But if you just plugged a short cable directly from your guitar directly into the amp, and then played it and listened to what it sounded like, and then went to this thing and took that same short cable out of it and plugged it into your amp over here, it's going to be a little brighter coming out here, because this is immediately buffered, and it's changing the impedance of the signal. You don't get the capacitance that you would get from that 20-foot cable run, all that kind of stuff. So it's going to be a little brighter, but I'll talk about this in a second. I also have a buffer at the end of the chain here too. But it's just what happens with wireless units. There's no way to get around it. So it comes out of there. And then I'm using this is a new pedal for me. This is the stacked edition of the Cali 76. This is a super cool pedal. And it's basically each one of these knobs right here is an 1176, and this knob in the middle is how much of this 1176 are you going to drive into this other 1176. So kind of a common recording thing that they do in the studio. Lowell George made this famous. It's really great. It's kind of some of the same premise of their slide rig pedal. And man, when you drive this thing, when you turn this thing and drive it over, it's so fast. You know, there's no wonder why slide players use these compressors, because it just makes it so huge and fat. I just use it for taste. It does act as a little bit of a boost, which is nice to get that signal kind of boosted up here at the very beginning. It's a really quiet pedal. Obviously, compressors are going to, raise that level, that noise floor, but everything is so quiet that I don't have to worry about that. So this is kind of always on pedal. This stays on both for acoustic. If I want to turn it off, obviously I can reach the button here and turn it off, but pretty much stays on for both electric and acoustic. And so then out of that, I come down into this, into the input here of this Joyo switcher. This is an interesting switcher, and it worked for me. It was one of those things, I hadn't really used a lot of switchers like this before. And I think the typical ones, right, would have a button for each one of the loops here. And then you would just, hit the buttons for whichever stuff that you wanted to turn on or off. This doesn't do that. It's got 2 bank buttons, and then it has like 4 sort of program buttons. And then you can figure out 4 combinations in each bank of what you want to turn on. This is also, unlike some of the other switchers where you can plug the pedals into each one of these loops and then programmatically figure out, well, I want this pedal to actually be before this pedal, and then in the program you can switch out how you want that, like a gig rig switcher or something like that. This doesn't do that. So this is the order that everything is going to go in. And so for me, the order is this Octonaut Hyperdrive, which is basically a really good Klon pedal. And then the Duelist, which is a tube screamer on one side and then a blues breaker on the other side. And then this is a killer pedal. Probably my favorite gain pedal or drive pedal is this Greer Lightspeed. It's one of those organic overdrives. It's kind of like a Timmy pedal, if you're familiar with those, but it's kind of an always-on pedal for me. And in fact, down here in this first loop, this is the effects loop. I'll talk about that here in a second. But basically, in my very first loop over here, I've got it where it's just the effects, no gain pedals. And then the very first one here is this Greer. And then I've got a couple different options where I'm putting the Klon in front of it, and I'm putting the Tube Screamer in front of it as well. I've got an Iridium over here. I'll talk about that here in a second. My highest gain pedal is this Nordland. This is an ODRC, basically like a Nobles pedal. And then the last pedal here is this Union pedal, and I picked this up from Chris Stapleton. So on his pedal board, and I think he just uses it as basically his like master sort of a boost pedal. It's exactly how I use it. When it's off, and you have this knob turned all the way down and you turn it and you enable the pedal, it's still like a tiny bit of boost, right? So it's almost all the way turned off. There's a ton of boost in this thing, obviously, but I just leave it there. And so when this is engaged and I turn it on, I engage it down here, it just is like a boost for after all the drive pedals. So it's not really, obviously it's pushing the amp a little bit more, but it's not really pushing any of the drive pedals. And so each one of these obviously comes back down here into each one of these loops. And so when this loop isn't enabled, you don't have your signal going through each of these other pedals and perhaps picking up noise or just making the signal path longer, etc. And so you have a choice down here of how you want to arrange them in order, and then which ones that you want to have on any particular time. While I'm down here too, I have to talk about these. I don't really know how to say this, like CIOKS. Looks like on their marketing, that's actually an I. So I don't know how you say that actually, but this stuff is incredible. I don't know, there's not enough good stuff I can say about it. I literally switched from, this was the the power supply that I was using before. And this is not a bad, this is a custom audio electronics made by MXR. And this thing it has everything, tons of 18 volts, 19 volts, the two in the middle there, those little potentiometers that you can adjust between 9 and 15 volts. This thing is really heavy. You probably need about 10 of those to equal the same weight there. And one of the cool features with these is that you can see this cable right here, they daisy chain together. And so there's another cable or another spot right there that if I wanted to add another one, I could. And what's also really cool is you can see that little light right there that shows the percentage of full, right, max load. So even with all this stuff turned on, I have multiple Strymon pedals. I'm running pretty much almost all these pedals. This one's not, and this one's not. But everything else is running at 18 volts, which is also really cool. Every single one of these. So this is the main one that you buy. This is the DC7, and this gets you 7 right here. And then if you look at the marketing stuff here for it, if you run each of those channels at 9 volts, you get 660 milliamps. If you run them at 18 volts, you get 330 milliamps. So obviously you need to pay attention, but to what your cables. But I do have one of these right here is running this, and this all on one cable that's plugged over here. So you can still do the daisy chain stuff, but everything else has got its own, and these are switched. Everything else on the board has its own dedicated power. I still have one left if I wanted to add anything else. So this is the one that you buy first. This is the main one. It's the one that plugs into the ship's power over here. I did buy another little cool connector here on Amazon that allows you to power this guy up, of course, right here. But then it also kind of splays out here and gives you one of these. And so I plugged in this guy, which gives me some USB, gives me 3 power outlets here, so that I have this on top of my rack. So if I want to charge my phone, or if I need to power a monitor or something down in front, I can definitely do that. So I can't say enough. You can buy these as a kit. I bought these off of Amazon. They come together. It's actually 2 different boxes, but they come together as a kit. One of my other favorite features is these are RCA connectors at the unit here themselves. So they're very sturdy and connect in. Whereas, these down here, these things will generally tend to pop out pretty easy from the power supplies. So pretty cool stuff there. That is essentially the signal flow. What else I have going on here? I don't have anything in 6, but in this loop here, I've run the Iridium in the loop. And again, going back from beginning to end, this is the order that everything goes in. There's no way to change that. So in between the drive pedals and the effects rack, which I will just call this the effects rack up here, the effects rack down here literally comes to the send right here, comes up to this cable. Everything goes through. These are all just wired to each other in the back. They're not in a loop down here. Everything is just wired to each other. The output here comes back in and closes that effects loop, right? So what I found doing some testing was that for the Iridium, and again, this is a 3-way system, right? So I can run directly to an amp. I can run my acoustic and come out of the DI over here, or I can switch over and do to the Iridium and play and go direct basically with an electric. And that also comes out through this DI box here, so it uses the same channel. And I found with my testing that it just sounded better if I had all of the effects driving into the Iridium like you would a normal amp. It just didn't, it lost clarity or something. It's hard to explain. But I found that if I use the drives and drive, this, right? So I keep this is basically a very clean Fender sound. I've got a Marshall sound over here for my favorite that I can go to. And when I was testing that, I literally was just sitting over here. I had this over here plugged into a channel in my PA, And I was dialing that in, and I had this side over here plugged into my 2-rock, and I could literally just go back and forth and hear the difference between the 2 amps and the volume differences and everything, so that when I'm playing live, and if I switch over to here and I want to play the electric guitar, all of the gain structure and everything is the same. So if I switch off my acoustic and then switch over to this, it's not like super loud or super quiet, and I've got to mess with that over here. So this was the way that I was able to kind of test that, was to go back and forth. So it sits in between, so I can run some drives into it, and then after this, it's going to go hit the effects rack and get delays and reverbs and stuff like that. After the effects rack, you have the output here, right? And so the output in my setup goes to this little TC Electronics Bonafide buffer, which made a difference. It really did make a difference. It wasn't a huge difference, but you do have a decent amount of cables going through all here, and usually about a 15 or 20 foot cable going from the rack to the amp. So it definitely helped a little bit. And then from the buffer, the output goes over in here to this little switcher here. It doesn't need power. The only reason it needs power is if you want the light to be on, but it actually will work. I just ran power to it just so that I could get the light to come on. When it's over here, the output goes up right here, which comes out here. When it's over here, it runs a cable over into the input of this Rupert Neve DI, and then the DI goes out. So everything is buffered on that output, whether it's going to the DI or whether it's coming back out to the amp. Up on the top, on the effects rack, I'm using this Source Audio. It's just like a programmable EQ. It's got 4 different EQ settings that I can use and go to, which is nice. I do have this this Empress. This is a great. They actually make a new version of this. It's more of a pedal that looks like this, but this is a really good one as well too. But it's just a little easy. It's easier to see that, and I haven't quite figured out all the different curves and stuff that I'm going to put on here, but I really like having that on there. It definitely helps with a number of different situations. This is the Monument. This is a harmonic trim, which is awesome. Obviously this will do that too, but I just like having the extra options here. So I just have this. Plus, one thing I love about this too is it's got tap delay in it. The H90 speaks for itself. I wasn't using that for a while. I've got a H9 up here with the little extender thing on it to switch the programs back and forth. But once this thing got a firmware update to do Bluetooth, I can now run it. I can run the app on my iPad, and I can control it with that. And then of course the Brigadier just for the general delay duties, and then the Big Sky covers all of the reverb and ambience kind of stuff. And so again, when I switch over into the acoustic mode, what I'm able to do is just leave this like this, right? So literally coming in from the wireless, going to the compressor into this, and then bypassing all of this stuff, and then just hitting this effects rack up here. So when I'm playing acoustic, the only thing I'm using is this compressor down here and then the effects rack up here. And then when I'm playing electric, I can bring in all the stuff down here. So pretty happy with this setup and how it looks and how it works. And then the next thing here I'll do is I'll just unplug this thing and fold it all up. And so one of the things that you have to kind of play around with when you're building this out is to make sure that when you fold all this stuff up here that you don't pinch anything and you get all your cables and stuff. And I'm not quite there yet. Again, the thing that I'm really kind of trying to focus on is just to get it mostly clean, but to go play some gigs on it and feel it out, you know, figure out. I'm also going to leave an extra power cable in here, just in case. I mean, I can always move my looper over if I needed to do that, if I wanted to bring this out or if I wanted to audition another pedal. Another thing you can do with this over here too, this is cool. I thought about actually on this number 6 right here, wiring it up to this guy so that if I wanted to, I could audition a pedal. I could have like an extra pedal out here and I could put it out here and just use it to audition it in my rig. So that's a possibility too. But so what happens is you just kind of pull pull this up and over. So I'll put the phone down and get it all figured out here, and then I'll get the phone back. All right, so figured out that I do have some work still to do on the inside to figure out how to get stuff mounted in there properly. So this is what happens here. Stuff will get, as you pull that back up, stuff's gonna get smashed. Turns out my power supply over there is not gonna work because where it is right here, because there's this little piece that when you pull it in right over there, it wanted to sit right on top of it. It's got these little cool things right here that will close down on that, and they'll latch and grab onto it. And then when you store it up, it's nice and closed up like that. So again, just a total work in progress here, but I'll figure it out. But anyway, I just wanted to share that. If there was anybody out there that was in the market or trying to figure out how to do a 3-in-1 kind of a board and just different stuff to use for that, I could tell you that the Pivotal is a great board. I'm very happy with it. And these power supplies are killer. Obviously, I'm gonna have to figure out what to do here to rearrange some stuff to get this all to work right, but you got a lot of space on here. I have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 pedals and 2 power supplies effectively, and a switcher on this pedal. And I still have the whole back row here that I could add stuff to it. So this is the 26-inch too. I think this is the biggest one that they sell, by the way, if anybody was wondering on that. But anyway, let me know if you have any questions. Hopefully this was helpful or useful to some folks. Kind of goes along with my ideology of making videos. I literally watched a bunch of videos of people who had tried to do some kind of combination of this, but I hadn't really found one that was super helpful to me. So I thought I would make one, and if it's helpful for you, awesome. And anyway, but appreciate you stopping by. Let me know if you have any questions, and have a good one.